Integral rules. There's all kinds of different integral rules. Let's start with a simple one. This one says if we integrate from a to b of f of x dx, it's negative the integral from b to a of f of x dx. That is, if we reverse the limits of integration, we end up with a negative sign. Let's look at an example. Suppose we wanted to integrate from 2 to 1 of x squared dx. Well, here's a picture of x squared. Here's 1 and here's 2. This tells us we want to go backwards. We want to go from 2 to 1. And this is telling us that's negative of going from 1 to 2. Since this is an equality, it means that we can do this in two ways. One is just integrate directly. Just do this the way it is, and just make sure the 1 is on top and the 2 is on the bottom. And so the integral of x squared and antiderivative is x cubed over 3. We evaluate between 1 and 2. That means we plug in the 1 first, and so we have the 1/3 there, and then we subtract what we get when we plug in the 2. When we plug in 2, we get 8/3, and we end up with minus 7/3. It's important to remember that the 1 is on top. It's not the largest one on top. It's whichever one is the upper limit of integration, so we put in the 1 first. The 2 is the lower limit of integration, so we subtract off what we get when we put in 2. The other way to do it is using the formula, and this will show us that the formula is true or demonstrated in an example. So instead of integrating from 2 to 1 of x squared dx, the formula tells us that's equal to minus the integral from 1 to 2 of x squared dx. That is, if we write down the integral from 2 to 1, since that's going backwards, it's negative the integral from 1 to 2, or negative this area. And so now we can just integrate x squared dx, keeping in mind that there's a minus in front of it. So this is minus x cubed over 3 evaluated between 1 and 2. So leaving the minus sign out in front here, we just plug in the 2 into x cubed over 3 to get 8/3. We plug in the 1 to x cubed over 3 to get 1/3. That minus sign is still living out in front here. 8/3 minus 1/3 is 7/3. So we end up with minus 7/3. We end up with the same thing both ways. That's because this formula is true. All you need to remember is that when you reverse the order of the limits of integration, you pick up a minus sign. And that's the rule.